in the 06010.
Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus. Today's show is presented by Geico. Insurance can be hard. That's why Geico makes it easy with 24/7 claim service and on-the-go policy info in the app. It's easy to Geico. Here with Field Yates, it is Tuesday.
Yeah.
October 17th. Do you know what's special about this day, Field?
I literally have no idea what's special about this day.
This day is the date that Mama Dopp and Papa Dopp decided to get married many moons ago. So I want to say happy anniversary to my parents.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long one.
I was extremely stumped. Like, I thought you were going to tell me it's like the NFL trade deadline is today. Or you're going to tell me that, like, I don't know, like effective today, like, I don't know, you can legally buy cigarettes in Connecticut or something.
It's
at your
about time
age.
that I'm allowed to do it. Yeah, right. No.
I don't know. I was totally stumped. So
I don't
thank
want
you
the
for
trade
that.
deadline to be now, Field. I actually want the trade deadline to be as late as possible, to be honest.
It should be in both real life and in fantasy football. It's 2 weeks from today in real life. So we'll see whether any teams become sellers, because I'm here to tell you that I have identified several bad football teams in the NFL.
You have? Have you?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
By the way, we're sitting in our 3-person set with just two of us
it's
today.
Just two of us.
It kind of looks like a fireside chat right now if you're watching. Like, I feel like we should have some eggnog.
Yes. Are you Teddy Roosevelt or am I? Which one?
You can be Teddy. I actually hate eggnog.
Do you really?
I don't like it.
It's the creaminess of it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I just feel like I'm eating dessert.
You'd rather just have the bourbon straight without any of the egg.
I'd rather have the bourbon straight and like have an actual dessert later.
That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that.
I got a sweet tooth, so it's a problem.
Field, I'll tell you what we're going to do today.
Okay.
We're going to recap Monday Night Football, which is a very fun thing. We're going to talk about at least it's football. That's what we're excited about. We're going to talk about some injury updates, and we got Waiver Wire a little bit later on in the show, but let's start with this recap real quick. Cowboys and Chargers. Field, there was one thing I was paying attention to more than anything else in this game, and I just wanted to see how good Austin Eckler looked. How much did they use him here? How much did they ramp him back up to full speed? Spoiler alert, there was no ramp. It was full Austin Eckler basically the entire game. I loved seeing that.
Yes, except for the output, right? So it's
other than the
that
output.
was a very Mike
I'm
Clay response from you right there. Like, you love the nearly 20 touches. You love the fact that he was basically on the field all the time.
Yeah, there was not really, he lacked a fantasy punch in this game, you could say.
Yeah. Inefficient rushing night. He had 14 carries for 27 yards and was a little bit involved, but not super involved in the passing game. And, of course, he did not find the end zone. So I actually think that most people are waking up this morning feeling kind of like, ooh, all I needed from Austin Eckler was 10 fantasy points or 12 fantasy points to win last night. They didn't get that.
Nope.
So good on you for everyone for right now being the process guy as opposed to the emotions guy here, which I'll be the emotion guy right now because I'm all fired up that I didn't get my 12 fantasy points from Austin Eckler. But yes, I think that one of the things that was overlooked in the fact that Austin Eckler was returning was that it's a tough matchup. The Cowboys defense is amazing, and we got enough from Austin Eckler in the passing game for me to feel like we're going to see usual Austin Eckler going forward. He's been a little bit more run heavy in the 2 games he's played this season than he was last year, which isn't a terrible thing. We just know that his super duper power is being the best or second best pass catching running back in all of football. So I'd like to see one of these games where he pushes for 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 targets in that game.
I would love that.
But not terrible to get nearly 20 opportunities for Austin Eckler, given the overall skill set for him.
In your first game back, we've seen guys get ramped up and be used slowly. Jonathan Taylor, one of those guys. And so it's just nice that we were able to see a full usage out of Austin Eckler. I'm with you, though.
RB25 for the week.
So. Hey, listen, as bad as running back has been, I wanted better than RB25, but like you said, I am all in on the volume there. Speaking of volume, Keenan Allen just keeps crushing here in this offense. With Mike Williams not being here, he is just a target monster, and I don't know how you could ever pull him out of your fantasy lineup. He seems like one of the few set-it-and-forget-it guys right now.
He's like the Adam Thielen of the West Coast right now. 11 targets last night for Keenan Allen, 7 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. I thought this was going to be a shootout early in the game.
Yeah, you and me both.
The Cowboys go 3-and-out. The Chargers respond and score in an instant, and you're like, oh, man, maybe this Cowboys defense is headed for another Arizona-type game.
Yep.
They tighten the screws for the most part after that, but Keenan Allen has just not been denied all season. It's like the resurgence of old wide receivers right now. Again, if you had to build a list of wide receivers, and we did this exercise yesterday with Adam Thielen, Here are the guys that I think come off the board first. It's some order of, and we don't know when Justin Jefferson's going to be back, so he'll be lower than you expect. Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
Probably Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and then it's like Adam Thielen,
AJ Brown,
Keenan Allen,
Amon-Ra.
Like that's the territory. That's the air that Keenan Allen is breathing this season. He has been unbelievable. And I know that everybody has to have a bye week, and Keenan did already have his, but that's the important part. He did already have his.
Passed it.
Like, you may have yourself a top 5 wide receiver every single week for the rest of the season. And with 6 teams on a bye, that's going to be you're going to be reminded of that dynamic this week in a very, very harsh and significant way.
Absolutely, you are. Also, I want to say about this receiving core. I thought Josh Palmer looked pretty good here.
He did. He had a touchdown taken off the board early.
I was going to say that. So if you look at the stat sheet, 7 targets, 4 receptions for 60 yards. So I'm thrilled that he got back-to-back double-digit performances here. But it was actually a way better performance than this because he had multiple catches that were called back due to penalties that did not show up on the stat sheet. I was really pleased with what I saw out of Josh Palmer last night.
And it remains extremely clear. Like,
he is clearly the number 2, and it is not Quentin Johnston yet.
Quentin Johnston, it might be a year away, but like I feel like he's in witness protection right now. I look for him on every snap, and it's like, nope, still not catching passes. So if you had any hopes of Johnston being a late-round flyer that would be worth it, so far those hopes have been dashed, still and it feels probably at this moment like absent something happened to Keenan Allen or Josh Palmer, it's not going to click for Quentin Johnston this season.
Cannot believe Josh Palmer, spoiler alert, we'll talk about this in a little bit later, only still available in over 50% of fantasy leagues.
Barely, but still.
But
over
still,
50.
We got to get it up over that spot. Last thing here for the Chargers, Justin Herbert, the last thing I was looking for, playing with that broken index finger, right? Didn't look like it impacted him all that much. I mean, you could tell that there was something there because of that, but he played fine. I didn't have any issue with it.
He did play fine, and in a week in which quarterback play was bad on really the whole, bad. 19.1 fantasy points for Justin Herbert, good enough to register as quarterback 5 for the week. So Herbert's strong start to the season continues.
That's so gross.
What's really important about Justin Herbert, I mean, I know that 19.1 fantasy points is lower than his season average, but he has yet to bust. Right. And if you look at all the other quarterbacks, right, Josh Allen had a down week in week 1 and really wasn't great this past week either. Right. Patrick Mahomes had that quiet game against the Jets. Jalen Hurts was quiet all the way back in week 1 as well. No quarterback has been more consistent than Justin Herbert at the top of the board so far this season.
Dang, Herbert had his first game under 20 fantasy points.
And he missed it by a point.
And he's the only guy that has had 20 fantasy points in every game so far this year, which is incredible.
We'll change that qualifier. He is the only quarterback with at least 19 fantasy points in every game this season. It still works out. So he has remained maybe the best value amongst all quarterbacks this year.
On the other side of the ball, we had talked about
That's where I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think this whole Cowboys night was interesting.
So I was really pleased. I'm going to start with the things I was excited about.
Okay, yeah.
I like seeing CeeDee Lamb get involved here.
Finally. Yes.
It was about time.
Yeah.
We had not a board bet on FF Now. One of our red zone questions was Keenan Allen or CeeDee Lamb. And I think that both of them obviously played fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like we lost that. I think I took Keenan Allen because we were looking at yards.
Probably. I think I probably did too.
But CeeDee Lamb is like, hey guys, I'm just like Jamar Chase. I am also always open. You can always throw me the football. Finally saw it here in week 6.
He said that last night after the game to Scott Van Pelt. So 7 for 117 yards. And that was on 7 targets. So super efficient night from CeeDee Lamb. It was a great matchup for this Cowboys offense. And that's the most important thing is that the Cowboys have played extremely weird games so far this season. Last night felt like the first game in which they weren't either blowing somebody out or being blown out to the point that CeeDee Lamb was not on the field late in the game, as Mike Clay has talked about. So the Cowboys play their first 1-score game of the season. The net result is the best day in terms of yard production for CeeDee Lamb this season. So good to see him ball out. And Dak Prescott went nuts.
Yes,
Here's the thing, is that like Dak Prescott went nuts. Unless you're in a deeper league, though, I don't think it really mattered because no one was really starting Dak. What was crazy, though, was Dak had 40 rushing yards and a touchdown. That's his most fantasy points with his legs in a long, long time. An 18-yard rushing touchdown from Dak. I don't know that it's a sign of things to come. But if the Cowboys are willing to incorporate Dak as a runner a little bit more, then it does give him the chance to kind of claw back to a top 12 fantasy quarterback for the rest of this season.
Yeah.
But it was such a good matchup that is not going to be the circumstances that Dak faces week in and week out. So, yes, we have 6 teams on a bye. Dak might crawl right around quarterback 12 again this week, but Dak's still not like a lock-it-in top 10 or top 12 quarterback for me, all things being equal.
I am totally with you, which is a tough thing to say about the number 1 quarterback on the week, which is just goes to show how bad. We had 3 quarterbacks score 20 fantasy points.
3.
That's it.
3 scored 20.
That's unreal.
Quarterback freaking 1. Can you get over that?
That is unreal.
Where are we at on Tony Pollard? Let's talk about this for a second.
I'll tell you where I'm at, Field Yates. I don't understand the usage. 15 carries for 30 yards.
So one of the things that was talked about a lot last season when Tony Pollard was performing extremely well and Zeke was performing a lot less well.
Efficiency.
Was just how like he was so efficient. But one of the things that the Cowboys seemingly suggested pretty frequently was, hey, Zeke provides a balance for Tony Pollard. He takes him off the field a bit more, which can lead to Tony Pollard in like better spots for big plays. We can not bother with the between the tackle stuff with Tony Pollard. Let Zeke do that.
Yep.
And then let Tony Pollard do the stuff where he's out on the perimeter and making people miss and, you know, turning out big plays left and right.
You want him in space.
Yeah. It feels like this year, and maybe it's too small of a sample, maybe I've overthought this, but it feels like this year, and last night was a good example of it, Tony Pollard has taken on so many of those duties that Zeke was carrying last year that it's actually led to decreased efficiency on the whole.
I would like to bring to this debate Alvin Kamara. I'm worried that they're turning him into what the Saints eventually did with Alvin Kamara, where it's like we're going to make him be a running back rather than the pass catcher that is so electric and explosive in the open field.
Yeah, so we'll see because he still got 6 catches for 80 yards last night.
Love that.
So like that more than salvaged the night last time. He's a top 11 running back for the week. That's not terrible by any stretch.
Though, just because of that.
But it's interesting. Yeah, that could be it. It just feels like, and you know, we certainly in our side of this do a lot of dunking on coaches, right? It's very easy for us to dunk on coaches, and that's part of the job to a degree. But I also think there is like, I think it's fair that we probably owe some of these coaches a little bit more deference than sometimes we give them. Maybe the Cowboys kind of had this one sized up right with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, that like there was some value in having a guy that could do the dirty work that allowed Tony Pollard to be this elite player in a smaller sample size of carries.
Yep.
And maybe that's what we learned last night. Let's talk about this from a fantasy perspective going forward. There are 2 things I think you can bring up. One is that like he's still going to get a ton of carries. He's going to get enough receiving volume that I still think he is a top 10-ish back for the rest of the season. The other question would be, hey, do I need to trade Tony Pollard because he's coming off of this night that looks good when you look at the total number of fantasy points, but is artificially inflated because of the fact that he had 6 catches for 80 yards. Even a really good receiver like Tony Pollard is not going to average over 13 yards per reception out of the backfield. That's a very, very rare thing to do.
Yep.
Do you think you should trade him right now? And it's like, the problem with that is the same thing that we've mentioned on a couple of other occasions with players that have just been balling out at running back unexpectedly. Is that who are you trading Tony Pollard for? Right? Is there a running back that's on the rise but hasn't quite hit his peak yet that you're like, okay, that's the guy that I would be looking to target? Other than Breece Hall, I don't have an obvious name of a guy that you're like, whoa, like this guy is coming and he is going to be a lock-it-in top 10 running back, and the world just hasn't realized it yet. I should trade Tony Pollard for that guy. We don't have, like, I'm thinking of Kenneth Walker III last year.
Yeah.
Breece Hall to a degree this year. But it's like, if I have Tony Pollard and you have Travis Etienne, you're not going to take Tony Pollard for Travis Etienne, right?
I'm just making a move to make a move at that point, too.
And that might actually be a downgrade with how good Etienne has been of late, right? So I don't think there is like a bunch of, I wish I could tell people like, it's okay to try to move off of Pollard for these ascending running backs. I don't think there is. Like,
Who are the ascending running backs?
We did a redraft a couple weeks ago, excuse me, and he was number 10, I think on Mike's board. I had him out. Remember, it was very weird that I didn't have him inside my top 10, but like the efficiency just hasn't been good enough. And I think now I feel like a little more comfortable in that assessment, which might have been a bit of an oversight at the time. So he's still like a top 6, 7, 8, 10 running back at worst. It just feels like the explosion that we were counting on from Tony Pollard has not been there, and maybe the Cowboys were right as to why it might not happen.
And we talked about that a little bit in draft season. I'm looking at this right now. He is RB4 in touches on the season. Like, we knew that he was going to get more volume, and it's a part of that. We said, even with that more volume, the efficiency is going to shrink down, but because he's going to get so much more volume, it's going to be okay.
Totally.
It hasn't felt quite like that as much as I wanted to, but with how bad running back has been, basically to your point with everything you're saying, how do you move off of a guy that is getting this kind of volume in an offense where he's still going to be the lead back and he's the pass catcher? I still feel like he's the goal line guy. It's a really tough one because you want more out of this. You want to say, hey, let me move on while I can. By the way, Cowboys going on a bye this week. So if you do trade him, you're trading him on a week where he is heading into the bye. Which I always think that's interesting. Yeah. The way that people do trades with that, where it's like, do you want to trade for a guy on a bye week? Maybe if you're a good team,
you would be buying low.
Correct, because of that.
Yeah, and so if you're the person trading away Tony Pollard right now, the only way that you're trading him this week,
I'm getting someone that plays this week that's going to do something for me because I'm a bad team that needs to win this week.
Right. So you are selling low. So you're saying, I'll trade you my Tony Pollard for your Alexander Madison or something.
Something like that.
Right. We're a player who I think is clearly inferior in terms of how you value that player, but at least he's available for week 7, and you can
he's still and
justify the trade that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think we're good. That was Monday Night Football, Field.
Monday Night Football, yeah, a strange game in some ways. There was just felt like this game was going to be a shootout, and then it became kind of a grinded out thing. Yeah. But an important win for the Cowboys, and the Chargers continue to charger.
Yes, they do. Oh, unfortunately.
How do you trust them?
You don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
You can't.
I feel like that's a difficult one. On any given week, these Chargers can be one of many different teams that show up on Sunday. We've seen them be dominant. We've seen them absolutely crush it. And then we've seen performances where it's like, man, I expected more out of you guys than this.
And they're playing the Chiefs next weekend. So good luck.
Not great. All right, let's talk about some injury updates. No Stephania Bell today. She is at the NFL League meeting, so she wanted to make sure that we still had some good information here. So hopefully we're going to try and give you the best info that we can on these injury updates. Field, Anthony Richardson. Most people already know this, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Yep.
Probably going to miss the rest of the regular season, heading to IR because of a surgery that he is going to have. That came from Jim Irsay, told
the
ESPN
owner
on Monday. Yes.
Yeah, the owner
of the Colts.
All right.
So we can assume that is going to happen. Field,
people are like, but hold on, dude. It's Jim Irsay. Like, that might mean he could be back literally the day he is eligible to be back. No, I think in this case, like, I am interpreting what Jim Irsay said as probably going to be out. Means we know he is going to be out, but there's like a 5% chance that he could return at the end of the season. So I'll leave the door open a little bit.
What would that look like? Like, just in case, let's say he misses 8 games. Yeah. What is this right now? Week 7?
It's week 7 now. He missed week 6. So that would mean he misses all the way through week 13. That 13, would be
14. Weeks. Okay.
Week 14. Here's the headline here. You can drop Anthony Richardson in redraft leagues. If you have stashed him for the past week on IR, with 6 teams headed on a bye this week,
yes,
roster crunches are real.
Yep.
You might have half your roster on bye this week, and you don't want to drop players. You also may have a hurt player that needs to go to IR. So, yes, Anthony Richardson, sadly, is droppable. And Mike made this point on Monday, and it's a good one. It'll be a fascinating discourse surrounding Anthony Richardson going into next season. Mm-hmm. You could see people ranking him as quarterback 5 going into next year because on a points per game basis, he was the 2nd best quarterback before he got hurt. You might also have people that are saying he's tantalizing, but we still haven't seen it for a prolonged period of time. And 3 out of 4 games he leaves because he's hurt. Are the Colts immediately going to change the way that they utilize Anthony Richardson like the Bills have this year with Josh Allen?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that because he's so young and there is still so much upside because of the legs. But get ready for an interesting offseason in terms of debating the upside. Not the upside. Debating where Anthony Richardson should be drafted amongst quarterbacks going into next year.
We've already talked about this, but just in case this is the first time someone's tuning in, how do you think that Gardner Minshew, if at all, will impact the wide receivers in this offense?
I think last week kind of showed it. Not much at all.
Yeah.
It could be a good thing. I mean, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs had big weeks this past week. Downs available in a lot of leagues. We'll talk about him more in just a little bit.
Yes, we will.
Tough thing for this week is they play the Browns.
Yeah.
And the Browns are gnarly on defense. Just go ask the 49ers about that. But yes, this could be a slight net positive for those two Colts wide receivers with Gardner Minshew under center.
All right, speaking of the 49ers field, Yates, Christian McCaffrey, we got word from Coach Shanahan saying hopefully Christian McCaffrey will be good to go this week, but if not, we've got a group of guys that we'll be able to count on. I was hoping for a little bit more definitive information. I know he had the MRI on Monday.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like we've got results from that yet to be able to know what this is going to mean. So right now, I'm just going to keep preparing just in case he's not out there, because with 6 teams on a bye, I feel like I need to make sure my roster is ready just in case. By the way, it's a Monday night football game.
Yes, it is. So you better get your waivers in tonight.
Yep.
Here's where it gets interesting, though. I actually think that Kyle Shanahan, excuse me, he's not Mike Tomlin or Sean McVay, where it's like the minute they know what the injury is, it's like, hey, this is the timeline. We expect him back by then, and then we'll sort of evaluate it again. He's pretty much straightforward, but sometimes he is like a little bit less obvious with how he is explaining the timeline. But the fact that he didn't know yesterday made me think that, like, they still, as of the time of his press conference, like, legitimately don't know whether he will play or not next week.
Yep.
It's in the realm of possibilities that he plays. It's also possible he misses. The most interesting part of his comments, though, came in follow-up questions from the 49ers press corps about sort of, hey, I don't recall if the question was like, what's your confidence in Jordan Mason, or what's the plan if Christian's out? I think a lot of us in the fantasy community were kind of hoping he'd say, hey, if Christian's out, Jordan's earned that job as the number 2 behind him. Instead, he made mention of how, yes, Jordan's been playing well, but we've seen Elijah Mitchell handle this role in the past. So if I had to make a bet right now on who starts for the 49ers next week if CMC is out, I'm at like 53% Jordan Mason, 47% Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
Excuse me, geez. Which means for waiver wire purposes, in some ways, it's a little bit of a trap, right? Like, I think either or is addable in waivers. And I think if you're adding one of them and you only get one and CMC is out next week, then, like, you don't have a choice. Like, you got to, like, kind of live with it. But what you're hoping for is if you add Jordan Mason this week, Kyle ends up saying later on, like, hey, something like Jordan's going to lead the way. We expect him to, be our starter. We'll also have Elijah in the game. Or you hoping to say the opposite. Like, hey, Elijah's played a ton of big games for us, and he's, a guy that had whatever it was during his rookie season, 800 some rushing yards. Like, he'll be the dude. So this has, it's not as grim as the Cardinals was last week, because definitely one or both of these guys could have a big day, but it's also not as crystal clear as other backfields where this player's out, add this player, and expect him to be, dollar store version of this normal starter.
Yep. Yeah, that's going to be a frustrating one. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the waiver section.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of 49ers running backs that we could talk about there. By the way, Deebo Samuel also still day-to-day per Kyle Shanahan.
That one seemed like a little bit more of, we think he'll give it a go.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. All right, David Montgomery, this one hurts. Lions head coach Dan Campbell said that David Montgomery will be out, quote, a little bit while he deals with this rib cartilage injury.
Yep.
We already saw no Jahmyr Gibbs last week. Yep. We expect him to be back, and it sounds like
Campbell said that.
Campbell is very comfortable with Jahmyr Gibbs being there. This is going to be a split between Craig Reynolds and Jahmyr Gibbs while David Montgomery is out. Craig Reynolds, someone we're also going to talk about in the waiver wire column.
Yep.
Something to look at there. But that's a real bummer for people that have David Montgomery.
It is. He's been excellent. Also, some context, and this was pointed out, I believe, by Jeff Risdon on Twitter, that
I love Jeff.
Hey, do you have a power rankings of all the?
I do.
Different. We'll do that different podcast.
I do. But Jeff is number 1.
Okay. So Jeff points out that, hey, David Montgomery sounds like he's unlikely for week 7,
which is against the Ravens.
The Lions have a bye in week 9.
Yeah. Week 8, they play the Raiders.
Yeah. So, but whether they play the Raiders, whoever it is, it's like, oh, so if you're not going to play in week 7 and you have a bye week in week 9, maybe, just maybe, you kind of take that 3-week span to get yourself right.
Hey, especially if Jahmyr Gibbs looks good in this Ravens game and you're like, okay, we've been waiting for this. Between Craig Reynolds and Gibbs, we can give Monty another week to get healthy, because they want this team and this running back room to be able to carry them deep into the regular season and playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, also just like if you continue to play how you have, which is winning football. Like if you're 6-1 after this weekend, you're saying to yourself, like, we would never rush this player back. I mean, we can beat the Raiders with or without David Montgomery, at least based off of what I've seen so far this season. So just brace for that possibility. I can't guarantee it. I don't think Jeff was guaranteeing it. Nope. I think he was providing important context, as we have seen with Austin Eckler most recently, right? Yep. You're so close to returning, but that bye week buys you extra time and ensures that when you do return, you're back to 100%.
I really want the Lions to beat the Ravens this week, in part because my buddy Kurt, who's in our Michigan Men League text, like he was at that last Ravens game where we got beat by the Justin Tucker field goal. I so desperately just want that to be wiped clean from our memory.
Riley Patterson, 68-yard field goal on Sunday to win the game.
I would love that. Oh my gosh!
Or do you guys just win by like 22?
Oh, we just blow them out.
Yeah, just like completely crush them.
Just Jared Goff.
What a great game that'll be! Wow, what a fun game that'll be on Sunday.
All right, another running back.
Flex that or no?
I would love to.
I think we actually already have Eagles. Eagles Dolphins on Sunday night.
You're right.
So like,
you're right.
I'm not disappointed in that. Maybe we can flex it to, what do we have Monday night? Oh, if we have 49ers Vikings. Oh well, I would prefer Lions Ravens over that, but as a company man, I'm still fired up for 49ers Vikings.
I'll tell you what, I know someone else who is excited about 49ers Vikings as well. All right, let's talk about Kyren Williams here. An MRI on Monday revealed that he did, in fact, have a sprained ankle that is expected to sideline him for this week's game against the Steelers. Doesn't seem like it's going to be long-term, is what Shefty has told us, which means that these Rams are going to turn to a couple of different people, Field, and guys that we're looking at adding off the waiver wire. How about the names Zach Evans and Royce Freeman?
That's right, because Ronnie Rivers is also hurt.
Also dealing with
number
injury.
2 running back in L.A. So Zach Evans, a draft pick from this past year out of Ole Miss. 6th-round pick, I believe it was. He sounds like he's the next man up. Sean McVay did suggest the possibility that the team, he said something to the effect of, right now we've got, did he mention both backs by name or no? He also mentioned Royce Freeman.
Yep.
But he said something to the effect of, we're working through some things right now as it pertains to the roster. So maybe this team adds someone off of a practice squad elsewhere. But yeah, it sounds like it'll be those 3 guys, or those 2 guys, I should say, right now. But if you are adding just one, I think Evans is the pick right now.
I would agree with you on that. Can I ask you a question that you might not have the answer to, but I'm going to do it in a live window?
Let's find out. Yeah, I might.
Leonard Fournette has just gotten no run whatsoever. It doesn't seem like anybody wants him. Is this like, we're into week 6 and we have had so many running back injuries? Is this a situation where Leonard Fournette is just like out of shape and not ready to play football and we're waiting towards the end of the season when you really need someone? Or like, what is the NFL saying by a guy that had 70-some passes last year from Tom Brady? Can't even make a roster right now.
It could be that. It could be that, he's at the point where he's made a decent amount of money, won a Super Bowl, and waiting for the right opportunity.
Okay.
Right? He doesn't want to go somewhere where he might be like in L.A., hey, we'll need you for a week or 2, and then you might be our inactive 4th running
for the next, for whatever,
Or would you rather wait for kind of like what Kareem Hunt did, where it was like, hey, even if you're going to have Jerome Ford as the starter, we're going to need you to play some meaningful snaps? It's a good question, though. I mean, it's also testament to just how many backs there are and how fungible that position often is.
Wow, that's a word I was not
expecting
today.
Fungible.
Yeah,
yes,
that's a good one. All right, let's talk about some quarterbacks here. Justin Fields, unfortunately, has a dislocated thumb. I got this from Stefania. One of the things I want to point out is with her not being able to be here, the big thing with having a dislocated thumb, it is about the pain and swelling getting it under control so he can grip the football. If you can't grip the football, especially as a quarterback, what are you going to be able to do? So a lot of this right now, it's why he's listed as doubtful, because of the fact that they think that's going to be tough for him to be able to get over within a week. So if you do roster Justin Fields, we would suggest you make a streaming option change here this week.
Not only that, obviously we're going to downgrade DJ Moore, etc.
Yes.
Raiders. Kind of a sneaky streaming defense. Again, they paid off last week if you added them when they played the Patriots.
Yep.
And this week could be the same thing because Justin Fields likely out. Tyson Bagent, very inexperienced. The Bears lost yet another offensive lineman yesterday on Sunday due to injury. So Raiders, one of my favorite streaming options on defense this week.
Wow, I like it, Field. All right.
Raiders are winning because of their defense right now, not because of their offense. Weird thing to say with the team that has Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Two really good players.
Also, Josh Jacobs, it's not like
and Josh Jacobs, of course, too. Yeah.
That's a weird one. All right, let's talk about Trevor Lawrence here. Last one. He has what is described as a knee sprain, but it is not as significant as we were worried about.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that we are most excited about. It's still uncertain as to whether or not he is going to be able to go short week. Thursday night football game, against the Saints.
Yep. So we are 60 hours, less than 60 hours from game time.
I would make other plans probably.
And I we'll see. I have no idea. Like
I wouldn't want to start him even if he was healthy against the Saints right now.
It's a bad matchup, and he has not been great so far this season. Obviously, we'll see here. I know the team would turn to CJ Beathard and feel pretty confident about it if they had to do so, because I think they believe he is a capable backup. The question that I don't know the answer to, though, Daniel, is was Doug Peterson coy yesterday by design? Was he coy because they're still evaluating? Was he coy because he thinks that Trevor Lawrence probably won't play on Thursday night? But yeah, if he doesn't play, we'll talk about that at length during our Thursday preview show.
We will have a lot. All right, Field, let's move ahead and talk about some waiver wire here. As a part of the waiver wire, I want to make sure that everyone knows the 6 teams that are on a bye.
Hit me.
Cincinnati Bengals.
They're good.
Dallas Cowboys.
They're good.
The Houston Texans. They have
good,
some pieces, actually.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans.
Some.
The New York Jets.
Some.
And the Carolina Panthers, which is Adam Thielen.
Wait, the Jets are on a bye again this week? How did I not know that? For some reason, I totally miscalculated that. But that stinks. No Breece Hall this week. Huh?
No Breece Hall this week, which is unfortunate. So that's 6 teams on a bye.
And Garrett Wilson. Yeah, 6 teams on a bye this week. Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, I want this. Jackson, if you're in here today, I want this to be the clip that we use for posting this podcast on social media. 3, 2, 1, go. NFL, if you're listening, I have a proposal. And it's not a proposal. It's more of a demand or an ask. Everybody agrees with me on this one, by the way. There are 8 weeks of buys. There are 4 teams on a bye at maximum. And when you are deciding which teams are on a bye at the same time, try not to put the teams that on paper look like the best offenses in the NFL on a bye together.
Thank you.
Right? Like, go through the NFL, go through the teams before the season and rank in your own mind offenses 1 through 32. And then what you do is you break that up into 8 tiers. The bottom tier, and I know that things can surprise during the NFL season, but just like we can, generally speaking, forecast the Chiefs are going to be good on offense.
Yeah.
Don't allow them to be on the bye the same week that the Miami Dolphins are also on a bye. Think about us, the fantasy managers. So, yeah, it's a bummer that we have 6 teams on a bye any week. It happens twice, by the way. So it's going to be tough.
I was going to say,
that's my proposal.
Are you talking about, I think, and this is a little spoiler alert, I'm going to look ahead here. Are you talking about week 12?
I believe it is week 12 when there are 6 teams on a bye.
And it is just brutal. It is week 10. All right, week 10.
That's 4 on a bye.
You've got Kansas City, the Rams, Miami Dolphins, and Philly.
The Philadelphia Eagles. Look at that.
Philly, Miami, and the Chiefs all on one. And Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams.
You could
totally
have a lineup this year in fantasy, which has, especially because of the Cooper Kupp injury at the time that it took place, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts is your quarterback, and Jalen Waddle is your second wide receiver. Like, that's a real lineup that you could have in fantasy.
And
that team,
out.
You will be playing Daniel and I in your flex. Anyways, I digress. There should not be 6 teams on a bye. That's my big proposal for the NFL.
At least one of us has caught passes from Russell Wilson, so I wouldn't be too bad in the flex play.
Point.
Did you catch passes from anyone when you were with the Patriots?
Oh, yeah, Chiefs? Brady for a while.
All right, you're just keeping that silent the whole time. All right, no big deal, Phil.
No, but here's the problem, is that with NFL, and you can attest to this now, is that even when you see NFL quarterbacks warming up on the sideline, because between every drive they're throwing, a pass that looks like it's just an accurate pass right to the person who's handling catching for the quarterback, quarterbacks rifle the football.
It is a rocket.
It is a rocket.
Yeah.
I remember, at first I was like, let me go gloveless. I would walk back from practice and my hands would be pink. Not because they'd been blistered, but because the football during the summer, the leather would would bleed onto your hands. These quarterbacks need to just a little bit of touch. They need to be like Greg Maddux.
Oh, a little bit of that.
But that's why quarterbacks, when they're on the sideline, have someone catch for them.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to break
They don't want to
digits.
catch a bag. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Enough quarterback talk here. We're going to talk waiver wire. Let's talk some running backs.
Let's rip through it. Yep.
We got two running backs that we talked about, both CMC and David Montgomery that we expect to be out. Let's run through the 49ers running backs that you would potentially want to add off of waivers this week.
So this is a double dip. I would love to tell you definitively it's Jordan Mason or it's Elijah Mitchell.
Both of whom are available in more than 50% of leagues, well available, so you can grab either one.
I think what I would do is I would put a claim in for both.
Which one are you putting the claim in first?
I'm putting the claim in for Jordan Mason first.
Jordan Mason is one, and then priority
because he's
two.
been doing it for the past few weeks. He's a good player. I know Mitchell is as well, but I'm prioritizing Jordan Mason.
Okay.
But I'm putting a claim in for Elijah Mitchell as well because, and I'm always so warped by playing in some of the leagues that we play in, whether it's dynasty leagues with big benches or 16-team leagues or Scott Fishbowl where you're like, every player is available, is not available.
Yeah.
So anyways, Mason first, Mitchell second. That would be how I would prioritize them, but I would try to claim both.
Okay. And then for the Detroit Lions, it's fairly obvious if you're going to grab
Craig
one.
Reynolds.
It's Craig Reynolds.
Yeah, but I am preparing for Craig Reynolds to be rendered as mostly moot because I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to play.
All right. So with that, let's talk about a couple other people that you have here. Obviously, we saw Chuba Hubbard do some stuff last week. One of the things about Chuba, if you do want to add him this week, goes on a bye here in week 7.
Yes, he's going on a bye. This to me would be the person. Here's the person who should be adding Chuba Hubbard. Team's in good shape.
Yep.
You're not dramatically impacted by these week 6 buys. And you're looking to pad some depth. Like, Chuba wouldn't be starting for you. You are willing to use the roster spot on a player who could lose his job when week 7 rolls around because Miles Sanders could be healthy enough to play. Part of me is like, well, shouldn't the Panthers turn to the young guy given the fact that they're 0-6? This is also the first of a 4-year contract for Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is like 26 years old. He's not 31, right?
No.
So I don't think Miles Sanders is going to lose his job if he is healthy in week 7. But just in case they start to say, hey, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and they're 0-6, by the way.
Yep.
Let's play more Chuba Hubbard. Go ahead and grab him.
All right. So if you're looking at one of these Cardinals backs, we got a bunch of running backs that we're basically going to talk about. All right. And that's kind of how I feel. I don't really want to add Keontae Ingram. I don't feel great about Amari DiMercato. Like, I feel like at that point, it is a total dart throw and hoping one of them gets in the end zone.
Pass.
Okay. And then for the Browns, we saw Kareem Hunt. We talked about this at the beginning of the season. Is Kareem Hunt like worth grabbing and holding? And eventually got to the point where it was like, you know what? We've had too many injuries. I've got to use those spots for guys that are playing. Now it looks like the Browns might be interested in using Kareem Hunt a little bit more.
Yeah, they have. They did use him more last week. However, he was still considerably behind Jerome Ford in terms of carries. So I think it's still Jerome Ford's job. But if Deshaun Watson's out again in week 7, they play the Colts, they're not going to be able to throw the football nearly as effectively. He is a fine bench add and stash, and probably, he might be usable this week because I was looking at running backs. Yeah. Here's my challenge out there. I don't know how many fellow fantasy analysts listen to our show. I don't know if it's more people that are just fans and not analysts, but if there are some fellow analysts out there that listen, first of all, thank you. Second of all, find me 50 running backs to rank this week.
No.
Find me 50. Good luck. I wish everybody out there that has to rank for a living the best of luck because I'm looking at the projections. I'm looking at the players that I would consider. I got to like 21 and I was like, ugh.
That's exactly what I'm looking at right now.
Like who's like 20? Give me some names of 22 through 25.
22. Well, so this is where I'm at right now, 22 through 25. So I don't know if everyone's
whenever the drop off hits. Let me hear it.
So we got Rashad White.
Okay, that's fine. That's a totally startable player, I think.
22, we have Jeff Wilson Jr. Okay. We have Jalen Warren.
Yep.
We have Zach Evans.
Yeah.
We have Zach Moss.
Yeah.
We have Javonte Williams.
Yep.
Latavius Murray. And then closing out the top 30 right here for me is Jaleel McLaughlin.
Okay, so I think like Latavius Murray was where I felt to myself all of a sudden, I'm like, wait. The guy who might be the backup, I get it with no Damian Harris, it's going to be more of a 2-man committee than it will be a 3-man committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that James Cook played an alarmingly low number of snaps last week. But really? Latavius Murray?
Yeah, that's tough.
Once you get the top 30?
That's where it feels weird, where it's like at that point, you're not starting any of those running backs in your flex, right? You're only starting one of those running backs if you are just so thin at the running back position.
Yeah.
And at that point...
But you might be.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. I am there.
Injuries.
I've got David Montgomery, who's going to be out. I've got Derrick Henry, who is on bye this week. That means that I'm looking at least 2 bench spots.
It's ugly. So, yes, Kareem Hunt actually has more value this week than I think he does in a normal week.
Gross.
Well, should be added. Definitely. And I hate to say this. I thought Jerome Ford had a stranglehold in this job when they first took over.
Looked like it.
I think Kareem Hunt has a chance to chip into that workload more and more by the week.
I'm bummed about that. I was really excited about Jerome Ford.
81 of $100 on Jerome Ford.
Well, I spent 85. Let's talk about a couple of pass catchers here. We already mentioned earlier as a part of Monday Night Football, if you want to grab someone, Josh Palmer, still available in under 50% of leagues. Definitely worth adding with how much he's being utilized within this Chargers offense.
Totally agree, yep.
We got Kendrick Bourne as well. Kendrick Bourne continues to do stuff. Field 11 targets this last week, 10 catches for 89 yards.
I think Kendrick Bourne would be interesting in a different offense. I think he's good.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he's a bad player either. I think if he were somewhere else, we'd be talking about Kendrick Bourne more. But yeah, I think with the Patriots are going to negative game script is certainly working in their favor so far this year.
It is and it isn't. It's working in their favor for fantasy
purposes.
Yes.
But Kendrick Bourne does have like 2 really, really solid games so far this season. Hard to totally trust him. He should be playing every snap for the Patriots, and they should be finding ways to get him the football as much as possible. But a totally reasonable bench add.
Another young wide receiver that we like, Josh Downs. We mentioned
this one I like a lot.
A couple of weeks. Also, part of the reasons why I like Josh Downs is because Gardner Minshew threw the ball 55 times on Sunday.
Yes, it's amazing. And by the way, Josh Downs, small guy, diminutive, quick as heck. Not a lot of difficult throws going his way. A lot of short stuff. So, while is Josh Downs a good bet to crack 100 yards consistently? He said, no, he is not. But if you're looking for 7 for 55, this is the guy for you. I'm actually surprised Josh Downs has not moved up more in terms of roster percentage over the past couple weeks, because we have been everybody's been talking about Josh Downs. So as far as the wide receivers are concerned, definitely my favorite one that we have mentioned up to this point. More so than him and Josh Palmer will be close, but the floor might be even higher for Josh Downs than it is Josh Palmer. A lot of Joshes.
A lot of Josh in there. Yeah. We had a lot of Joshes on
Fantasy
FF
Football Now too, when we were discussing the available wide receivers.
That's what it was. What do you know? That's where we're at. Let's talk about a top 10 tight end that is available on Waiver Wire, Field Yates.
This sickens me. If Jonnu Smith is available in more than 50% of leagues, by the time that this show airs tomorrow, I will pull Daniel's beard out. Are you kidding me?
That's ridiculous.
I know you'll be disappointed in that thing. Why is a usable tight end available in 85% of leagues? All the time. We do every Monday as we're sitting there on Sunday night and Monday morning trying to decide how to present this content to the people. Some tight end, Dallas Goedert lays an egg, or Evan Ingram has 3 catches for 12 yards. Hey, you know what should we say there? You know what we should say? He's a tight end. Yeah. Who cares, because you're still playing him. Meanwhile, we have an actual tight end who keeps producing that is just sitting there collecting dust on the waiver wire. Change this. Please change this.
I actually heard that before the game last night.
Oh, God.
That Austin Eckler was talking to Dante Fowler, and he was like, I'm starting Kyle Pitts. And Austin was like, you should be starting Jonnu Smith. And that's what caused the scuffle.
That it does make a lot more sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense now that you say that.
It's ridiculous that Jonnu Smith is a top 10 tight end. 1, just in general. The fact that we're even having that conversation is crazy to me.
Yeah.
2, it's ridiculous that with how bad tight end has been, in spite of the fact that his name is Jonnu Smith, we've been willing to give a chance to literally anyone that will get us fantasy points. And he's out there in 85% of fantasy leagues, Field.
I actually kind of get why he's a top 10 tight end guy. Not specific to the fact that he plays for Atlanta with Kyle Pitts, but just I am a sucker for Jonnu Smith. He's an incredible athlete, really good after the catch.
Absolutely.
When I'm sitting there, if we did a combine for NFL tight ends only, he'd be one of the stars of it. That being said, it's been about a utilization thing, right? In Tennessee, he was underutilized. In New England, they just got nothing out of him whatsoever.
Yep.
Why they had to trade him. Atlanta, Arthur Smith. It's the Smith connection.
Getting some work there.
Yes.
I both love it and hate it at the same time.
Did you know that Arthur Smith has 9 siblings?
What?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Now, he's also the son of the CEO / president of FedEx.
What?
You didn't know that part of it?
No, I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the great stories about Arthur Smith. So, not that like he's doing what he loves, right? But like if he didn't want to do that, he could be doing whatever he wants, right? Like Arthur Smith could probably be living on an island right now with no stress of coaching. And he chooses to be a coach instead. So respect. He's making great money on his own now, I'm sure. But like that coaching lifestyle is quite unforgiving during the football season.
I'm surprised that Drake London and Kyle Pitts haven't gotten more run than, knowing that his family comes from such a shipping and receiving background.
Hey-o! Pretty good right there, yeah.
All right, let's talk about some streaming quarterbacks here, Field Yates. In case you've got one of the guys that we talked about, as a reminder, not only was Anthony Richardson going to go on IR, but we've got Joe Burrow, who's definitely going to be out this week as a part of the bye weeks.
Right, Dak
Prescott. You've got CJ Stroud, who you may have been relying on as well, and hopefully that's it. Hopefully you're not starting any of the other guys.
Yep.
But if you need a streamer this week, there's a couple of different directions you can go. We've seen Sam Howell basically Blake Bortle his way to fantasy relevance. I think this is Blake Bortles 2.0 right now.
It could be. So here's the question that I have, because this is like, I was thinking about this, is that every week, if you just go like look at the players that are ranked somewhere around like quarterback 13 to quarterback 18, that's kind of the streaming category, right?
Yeah, right in that range.
If they're ranked quarterback 9, it's
in a
like,
10-team,
no crap,
12-team
you're starting
league.
that guy, right?
Yeah.
If they're ranked quarterback 20, it's like, no, I probably wouldn't start that player. And I was sitting there looking at the players that fell into that range for this week, and you're like, no.
I don't want any of them.
I don't really want to do that. And let's work through them,
I'm glad it's not just me that had these feelings last night while I was ranking players. Thank you, Phil.
So let's just go through some of these names.
Sure.
You mentioned Sam Howell.
Yep.
A couple of weeks ago, he gets the Bears and shreds them in the second half. I mean, just ridiculous. 25-plus fantasy points.
Yeah.
This past week, he plays the Falcons and somehow throws for 3 touchdowns with like 154 passing yards.
So weird.
Right? You can't count on that consistently. So this week, they play the Giants. Giants have kind of impressed me defensively in recent weeks.
They just held Josh Allen and the Bills in check.
Yep. So, and I think that the Giants are in gut check mode, and excuse me, I think the Sam Howell's tough day on Sunday in New York. Tough day.
Tough day.
So he's close to being ranked as like a streaming option. Would I love starting him this week? I would not.
Lower to expectation streaming option.
Yep.
Yeah. What about Desmond Ridder? Desmond
Ritter
has had
this one, right?
He's had a couple of games where it's like, whoa, Desmond, way to go. But
back-to-back games.
But the eye test for everything else.
Yes, exactly. This is like, when you watch him, you're like, there's no way I can feel good about starting this guy.
Yeah.
Right? They play the Bucs, who, when you're not Jared Goff, are a tough defense to face. They just are.
They'd only given up 3 touchdowns coming into that Lions game so far this year.
Yeah. They're a legit defense. So would I love playing Desmond Ritter? I would not love that.
No.
Again, just to run, these are people that are going to be ranked somewhere between like 13 and 18 this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel good about either one of them.
All right.
So we have correctly ordered them based off of my confidence level, but my confidence level is still quite low.
Unfortunately.
Do
you have anyone that you do feel? Does Gardner Minshew?
No.
Okay, that one does not also.
Browns defense. You had me there.
Browns defense. All right.
But so like I'll give you one other name.
Okay.
And he may have crept over. I think he actually did creep over the threshold. But Matthew Stafford interests me.
Oh.
I know that he had a great spot last week.
It was tough.
And he dudded.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, he did. Hold
on. See it.
He intrigues me against the Steelers. And then Daniel Jones.
I was thinking about Daniel Jones.
Kind of intrigues me.
So I'm trying to look at.
I got a Daniel Jones feeling this week, as a matter of fact.
Do you really?
I do. Now he has to play, obviously, so that's a significant part of the equation. But
Daniel
if he does
Jones,
play,
available in 59% of leagues.
I kind of like that one. I'm not going to lie to you. Of all the names that we have talked about so far, I would take Daniel Jones over each of them for Week 7.
Yeah,
taking on the Commanders. Obviously, he has to play.
Yep.
But if he does, give me Daniel Jones over all those guys. Now, it's not that Daniel Jones has been great this season. He's had a couple of moments, though, and this Commander secondary leaves much to be desired. Did you know the Commanders benched their first-round pick this past week?
What?
Manuel Forbes, 0 defensive snaps. Manuel Forbes taken 1 pick ahead of Christian Gonzalez.
Ooh, that hurts.
That one hurts right there. So anyways, and we could do that exercise a million times.
Those are fun draft debates. But
I don't like the... some guy goes in the 4th round. And it's like they compare, and some guy goes in the 2nd round. It's like, dude, like 2 full rounds last
year. The entire NFL saw it differently.
Yes, we did. Right. So, but like when it's back-to-back early in the proceed, like Aiden Hutchinson versus
Travion Walker. Yeah.
Pretty interesting right there, right? So
pretty nice.
When the same position player goes in back-to-back picks in the first half or close to the first half of the NFL draft, to me it's notable. When like, whoa, can you believe that like, some 7th round receiver got passed on by like 72 other wideouts? It's like, yeah, I kind of can.
Yeah. Yes.
The NFL kind of could too.
Everybody else saw it that same way as well.
So yeah, it's a bad week for streaming quarterback options, Daniel. That's my thought on it.
All right, we're going to talk about some guys that are heating up right now, field. Yeah. But first, give me something from our friends over at Geico.
Are you overwhelmed by insurance?
I am very overwhelmed.
That's right. Get all your insurance in one place with Geico. Plus, get 24/7 claim support and on-the-go policy access with the award-winning Geico mobile app. See how easy insurance can be and go to geico.com.
I'll tell you what, I need to head on over to geico.com myself, Fields Yates.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, because I got to get me some insurance. Because this week, oh, hey, look at this.
Hey, oh my gosh.
Now it's time for a Heating Up brought to you by Popeyes. And by the way, who are we talking about this week that is heating up? We have already mentioned this. Old man Adam Thielen has been on fire right now. By the way, these bags smell so good right now.
Can we have lunch right now?
I hope so. As soon as this is done.
Can we do the Popeye segment on a day in which we do the show at like 9 a.m.? Oh, and I'm not starving because I am starving right now and this smells delightful. But how good has Adam Thielen been?
He's been incredible.
Yeah. So how about this? It's amazing. Amazing that he had trivia. How many games with 100 receiving yards did Adam Thielen have in 2022?
I'll say 6.
0.
Oh, okay.
0 in 2022. He has 3 in 6 games so far this season.
Unbelievable.
2 catches for 12 yards in week 1. Since then, he has been the highest scoring wide receiver in all of fantasy football.
Let me ask you this question then. What do you do with Adam Thielen here in week 7?
Yep.
They're on a bye. If you have Adam, you've probably been riding this performance to be able to hopefully get you to a nice record.
Yeah.
If you are an underperforming team that has Adam Thielen on your roster, is this the week that you want to try to move him to a team that can give you a player that will play this week and get things moving for your fantasy team? Is it impossible to move on from Adam Thielen?
It's not impossible, but it would require like a legitimate top 12 option at wide receiver plus something else.
Plus something.
That's how good he's been.
In part because we don't see game script for this team changing anytime soon. They're going to have to keep playing from behind.
Play from behind. I mentioned this on Monday. Teams aren't going to like put this big umbrella over Adam Thielen where they're like, hey, you know what? We got to prevent him from like going way down the field. Like, no, they're just going to be like, yeah, if you want Adam Thielen to have 12 yards a catch, fine. Win that way. We don't care. Yeah. We do not care whatsoever.
That's the guy that we will let that guy beat us. We're going to stop everything else. And for fantasy, that's great.
That's great. I don't care.
I love that.
I'll take that every day of the week. So I guess the only way that he's tradable right now is if you play in Dynasty and your team's at a crossroads. Because I don't know how much longer this is going to last beyond this season.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking about a 33-year-old wide receiver. This is the ultimate, like, move him to a contender to get something, some kind of young value for your team for the future.
But just awesome to see. And, like, shout out Adam Thielen, like a guy who I thought coming into this season was not going to perform anywhere close to this because I thought he had lost multiple steps. Instead, he has lost nothing whatsoever. The Panthers have a lot of things they have to figure out, but they have got a stud on the perimeter in Adam Thielen. He has been awesome. He has been one of the best values in all of fantasy football. At some point, we should do the best values as a segment on the pod, like very soon, by the way.
I would love that.
Like the 8 best values in fantasy, and we'll use like round 8 and beyond. We'll make it round 8 to round 16. Like I'm not talking about undrafted guys, the Puka Nakuas, et cetera.
Yep.
Because it would be pretty interesting to see where Adam Thielen stacks up amongst the likes of, I don't even know who else would crack into that category.
That would be, I'd have to think about that.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those things where it's like, if you're thinking about guys later on in there was at least some sort of draft pedigree where you were like, I could pinpoint that this guy might do something for my fantasy roster.
Like maybe DeAndre Swift slid a little bit because of the preseason.
Definitely.
I don't know how far he slipped, but things like that where it's, my God, like, you know, some of the maybe like a Zay Flowers would be in that mix as well. It'd have to be those type of players who were drafted, but not drafted in the first half of most drafts.
I know that Mike Evans was not great this last week, but I got Mike Evans in the 8th round in a handful of drafts, in part because there was no confidence in those Bucs wide receivers. So definitely. Adam Thielen has a long history on this podcast, and I love that here we are at the very end of, hopefully not the end of his career, but like
I just cursed him going forward.
Going forward with that. He's been fantastic, man. One of the easiest guys to root for, too, in the NFL.
No doubt about that.
All right, Field, I'm going to pay some bills here really quickly, then we will close this one out. No matter what team you are rooting for, there's one thing that I think we can all agree on, and that is that football season brings us together. A connection like that deserves to be celebrated with a light beer that's just as great, and at just 96 calories a can, Miller Lite is the only light beer that you will want to celebrate with all season long. Because with Miller Lite in your hand, football doesn't just taste great, it tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, Field Jason, let's close this thing out. This week, you and I play each other in the Fantasy Focus Show League.
Yeah, baby.
And by the way, you and I are both doing pretty well in this league.
Yeah, we're having ourselves. This is Chiefs-Eagles Monday Night Football level of matchup between the two of us because you are hot right now. You are 8-4.
Yes.
My team continues to hold steady at 10-2. And just read this is an impressive starting lineup that you have. It's a 12-team league where you play 3 wide receivers. Give me your starting lineup. Obviously, we don't know about the health of your most important player, but give it to me.
At quarterback, I've got Justin Herbert. He's been pretty good at the quarterback position.
Yep, that's good.
At running back, I've got CMC. Boy, do I hope he plays this week.
Yes, I hope he doesn't.
I also have Alvin Kamara, who has come back and looked pretty
awesome.
great.
Yep.
I've got Rashad White as my other running back, who has been getting volume.
Yep.
I also have Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Michael Pittman Jr. to add to Evan Engram at the tight end position. I really have a really great set of starters here, Field. I feel really good about it. Bench depth is a little less.
It's kind of like your wide receivers will determine how good this team is.
It really is. Right? If Jalen Waddle can do stuff, if Devontae Smith.
Right. It's those two especially have been like a
little up and down.
Up and down. You don't quite know what you're going to get out of them. So on the other side of the ball, my team is Josh Allen with Austin Eckler and Raheem Mostert as my running backs.
Wow.
DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, and Brandon Ayuk as my wide receivers, who I would say are similar to yours in the sense that all big names.
Yep.
But we haven't mentioned a Tyreek Hill. We haven't had a single top 5, probably even top 10 wide receiver in our matchup mentioned yet.
Nope.
Dallas Goedert at tight end, Aaron Jones in the flex, plus whatever Chiefs defense and Riley Patterson as my kicker and defense. So big matchup for us. So
what's our projection total? Do you know
what projection is 141.5 for you to 139.0 for me. The 2 highest projections on the board. I don't know how many people have actually set their lineups, but some teams coming on strong recently in that league, and we do the victory scoring. So obviously we 10-2 is because every week you get 2 results. So the hot teams in the league. Jackson Agello. How about this? Jackson, whose team consists of
the
all question mark team.
This is so good.
Jackson had Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp on his. He drafted both those players.
They were on IR for
and he drafted Breece Hall.
Okay, wow.
So he has been Mr. Up and down. But his team is trending in the right direction. He's got Lamar. He's got Tua. He's got 2 good quarterbacks right there. Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard. A lot of players on a bye this week for Jackson, but that's a rock-solid team.
Kyron Williams, too?
Kyron Williams. He has been awesome. So, that's the story right there. So we are, I think both of us are sitting relatively solid for playoff projections. It's never, I think week 6 probably week 7 is a little bit generous in terms of saying you feel great about your playoff chances, but absent a bunch of injuries, both of us should crack that top 6.
You feel a lot better when you're in a not 1-6 spot. That's how you feel, or 1-5, I guess is what it would be.
Also, I just like victory scoring because it just makes you feel like your team that is at the top is bona fide. Whereas there are I'm in a league where I have been the person who has sort of jerry-rigged my way to 5-1 through 6 weeks, but you're I don't think I think my team is kind of flimsy.
Not actually that
good. I think I'm actually more like a 3-3 at best team. So I like the victory points because it does reinforce just how good your team is or is not.
I like that, especially because, and I know we complained about this and it's meant to be fun, but when you are the second or third highest scoring team of the week, and you lose to the first or second highest scoring team of the week, it's just like the biggest. You just feel so deflated.
Yeah, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, you did as best.
I did everything I could. I couldn't have done anything else here.
Yep. So victory points, a worthwhile thing to consider for those that have not yet tried that format.
I agree.
Or
it's
tried
a lot
that.
of fun.
It's not a format. Try that rule. Try that setting, I should say.
Yeah. Change things going up into next year. That's going to do it for our Tuesday show, Phil.
That was fun. I kind of like the two-man arrangement over here.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too
tomorrow,
bad.
do we have Mike Clay back?
Tomorrow, unfortunately, Mike Clay will be back again this week. Do you think he's going to listen to this podcast?
Probably not.
Probably doubt it.
Mike's probably, what do you think he's doing right now?
Computer stuff.
Yeah, I'll say pool. Pool with a couple Miller Lights for Mike.
That'd be more fun.
Yeah, that would be more fun.
That would be a lot more fun.
Yeah, we're back tomorrow, though. Tomorrow we'll have Week 7 rankings talk. I'm just telling you, there are going to be guys who are going to be like, how the heck is he wide receiver 22?
Why are we
because
talking
there
about
are
this
6
guy?
teams on a bye. And maybe we'll do that best values conversation tomorrow. If not, we'll do it sometime soon.
That's right. All right, for Field Jace, my name is Daniel Dopp. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. You have deserved it. We will see you guys tomorrow.
1 week until the NBA season begins.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Draft tomorrow night.
I need some more ball in my life. It's not enough just having football.
Ball is life.